Hello, and welcome to Crushing Classical and to the second Fireside Chat where Eileen and I talk money. I admit it, I wasn't always that savvy with money, and I'm committed now to talking about this to musicians on this podcast. You need to start living in reality about money and what that means for your income and your career. This episode is the start of the money conversation, and we won't be stopping anytime soon. So buckle up and get ready. It's time for reality. But before we get started, I want to thank Fix Music for providing the hosting for the show. If you are looking for high quality sheet music at affordable prices on a visually pleasing website, seriously, this is the most attractive sheet music website I've ever seen. You should look no further than fixmusic.com. That's spelled F-I-C-K-S music.com. They even went so far as to have YouTube videos on the music page so you can hear the music to the piece you're about to buy. I've never seen that before when buying music. They currently have a great selection of high-quality string, piano, and chamber music repertoire at affordable prices. And keep in mind, if you play another instrument than strings or piano, you can get in touch with them through their website, and they'll do their best to get that music for you. And just for Crushing Classical listeners, if you order now, you can use the code CRUSH for 10% off your order. Check them out now at fixmusic.com. All right, let's get started. It's time for the Fireside Chat. Hey, Eileen, what's up?
What's happening?
Are y'all toasty warm by the fire?
Ha! Toasty warm in Phoenix, Arizona, you bet.
Oh, yeah, you don't need a fire.
We don't need fire here. You just walk outside and there's fire. I'll tell you what. It's like it's like walking out. It's basically like turning your oven on to 400 degrees and then letting it cook up and then opening it when it's hit peak temperature, and that's what it feels like walking outside.
Oh my God.
It's like walking into an oven.
I would like that right now because it's like 20 degrees here.
What?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. We had spring and then it's not spring.
20 degrees?
Yeah, it's painful.
Oh, that is painful.
I shouldn't complain though because there's no snow at least.
Yeah, I mean, no, that is a plus. But it's probably because of the storms up in the Northeast.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. So anyway, why don't we talk about everybody's favorite topic that nobody wants to talk about in this audience, which is money.
Let's talk about money.
Let's
Everyone
talk about
wants
money.
it, but no one wants to talk about it. They just hope it'll magically appear. I know that's how I felt.
Yep.
Someday I'll have it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, and you know what's funny is why I ended up going, no, I shouldn't say why. Part of why, a piece of why I ended up not becoming a musician and going into the business world is because I had so much trouble with money through my college, years, and I was broke all the time, and I had to get my instrument maintenance or repaired, and I had to buy reeds, and I had to buy music, and I had to, I just had to pay for things, and I never had money to do that, and I got really sick of that predicament, really sick of it.
Right. I I was just like, someday it won't be like this. I don't know why I believed that so truly, but I was like I was like that someday when I get my big job, this won't be a problem anymore.
Well, what's interesting about that too is when you say someday I'll, when I get that big job, I don't think anyone's really thought about how much musicians get paid, actually.
No, I know. And when I was in my 20s, I thought, something over 100,000 is like this, that's like you're a millionaire or something, like I didn't, all I knew was that those people made a lot of money, like Chicago Symphony people, for example,
Yeah, they've always had high salaries there.
Right. And if you're friends with, like I was friends with some single people who were in the symphony. Like they had no family and they were making that income and they had these sweet apartments and, it just looked like they were super rich. So it was like this dream.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny because I was talking to I think he's 24-year-old kid today at the gym. And he was saying to me, I'm trying to get a full-time job right now. And he was looking on, Indeed.com or whatever, looking for a job. And I said, so how much are you looking to get paid? And he goes, I mean, it'd be great if I made 30 or 40,000. That's what he said. And he had this really, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed look on his face. And I thought to myself, you've never made, I was clear in the conversation we had. He's never made 30 or 40,000. He actually doesn't know how little that is.
Right.
It's actually not much at all. If you take taxes out of that, if you get a salary of $30,000 or $40,000 a year, you take taxes out of that. Most states charge. You're going to get between 30 and 40% taken out for taxes in any given state in the U.S. Do the math on that, and then if you have a health insurance premium, take that out too.
Yeah, I know. It's not pretty when you actually subtract all the stuff that comes out of your check.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. A lot to be taken out.
Right. And when you find out the salary that certain jobs pay, it's the gross. It's like this is what it is before anything gets taken out. So,
right.
I can tell you that when I subbed with the Chicago Symphony last summer, I would get my check and go, it's a nice healthy check, but wow, I can't believe how much stuff was taken out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, all the time. And so and I said this on the hot seat that we did the other day, and I'll say it now, which is that, even if you get a job, which is fine, if you decide to get a job in music, if you decide to take a, tenured orchestra position or whatever it is, you are going to have to generate more income than you earn in that tenured job. There was a time when salaries kept up with the cost of living. That is no longer true. If you look around, you will see that the middle class is shrinking. It's been talked about in the media, but let's ignore the media for a minute. You don't even need to listen to the media to notice how a regular living is no longer sufficient for most people. People are living together, like families are living together now. 3 and 4 people are sharing houses. I mean, you can see it if you go on Craigslist and, you look for housing arrangements. Many people have 4 and 5 bedroom houses and they're renting out rooms in every house. Now, of course, the immediate thing is, they're trying to make an income from it. Yeah, they're trying to make an income from it. But the truth is they can't afford to live there without a bunch of people living there. We're in a time now where the salaries that are available are not keeping up with the cost of living. And that is not going to get better.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
That's a reality. And you can't ignore that. You can't ignore that as a musician. And if you don't get real about it, it's going to bite you in the ass. Just straight up, it's going to bite you in the ass. At some point, you will remember, if you're listening to this chat, you will remember this conversation and go, holy crap, she was right. Because it's going to happen. It will eventually get you. It will eventually hit you if it hasn't yet. And that's why I'm so big on people creating an income, even if I don't care what you're doing in music, but creating an income either in music or outside of music that is going to support your lifestyle, is going to make it possible for you to live a normal life, because living a normal life today takes more than it took before, than it took 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, and I read somewhere recently that even millionaires have like 7 or 8 different income streams. Like
Yep. Mm-hmm.
people that have a lot of money know that they can't get all their money from just one place. And so, yeah, musicians are used to, teaching some lessons and doing gigs. That's really what people think of. That's what musicians think of when they think of creating income outside of their gigs,
Mm-hmm.
is that they need to have lots of students. But And that's good. Students can be good, but it also is very time consuming. It's trading, trading a whole hour for a set amount of money still. It's not,
Yeah,
you know,
and honestly, those rates haven't gone up much either. Um,
right.
I when I was teaching lessons, I was doing. I think I was making around $25 for half an hour, something like that. I don't
Hmm.
think it's gone up much. I mean, we were talking to that guy the other day, and
Wyatt, yeah.
he's making like 60. That's an average for him, $60 for an hour.
Yeah, so it's not much more.
So it's gone up $10. And I'm 42, and I taught when I was in my, let's say, mid 20s. I mean, I taught before that too, but I'm just saying when I was teaching a lot of students, I was making, like $50 an hour.
Yeah.
So I'm
And
not making much less. And I wasn't making much less than he is, you know.
exactly. And sometimes I know this is going to sound maybe weird to some people, but sometimes string players get paid more than winds and brass. I don't there's some weird thing in the world of music where when string players start, they start so early and
Hmm.
parents are just used to paying a certain amount for strings because I don't know, it gets started as a certain, like, this is how much it is. Your kid's 3, they have to buy this expensive instrument or they have to rent it and they have to, there's so much more parent involvement with that
Interesting.
yeah, I've noticed this phenomenon where parents are really involved with string players. But I mean, my husband teaches a lot of violin lessons and the parents always sit in. And when I taught,
They
I mean, you
do?
did too.
The
Yeah,
parents sit
always.
in? Are you serious? I didn't know that.
Always. Almost all of them do. I would say like 99% of them do. Maybe the ones who are like 16 don't, 16 and up
So
don't
you
anymore.
mean like he's in there teaching a lesson and the parent is sitting in a chair listening?
Yeah. Sometimes they take notes and take videos and stuff. They're very involved. But like band,
Oh Lord.
the kid shows up at home one day with a big instrument and the parents like, "Oh, you're doing that now?" And
Yeah.
then suddenly, "Oh, maybe they should take lessons because the band director says so." And the parent, like, literally, I've gotten so many emails where a parent will email me and say, "My band director told me that I should sign my kid up for lessons." So that's because someone told me. And so usually the next question is, how cheap can I get this for?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, because they've got other activities or whatever they're doing, right?
Hmm. So yeah, so you could say 60 an hour could be a going rate, but you know, I don't
That's
know,
interesting.
40,
That's
I'd say 40 to 60 an hour,
interesting.
depending on the instrument.
I have to be honest. I would not want to be a teacher with a parent sitting in on a lesson.
I know it's
That
it's
would
harder to
annoy me.
teach. Well, sometimes the parent gets in. If the parent pipes up, then you're like,
Well, that's
this
the
isn't gonna work.
problem.
Yeah.
I don't want their opinion. Their opinion is not welcome here. Um, it's just not. I mean, really. And sometimes, and honestly, this is going to sound terrible. Sometimes you got to smack a kid down a little bit. I don't mean physically, but sometimes they need a little, they need a little verbal smackdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
it's hard
really
to,
hard to do that in front of a parent
right.
because the first thing they're going to do is come to the kid's defense. In most cases, anyway.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
interesting. Interesting.
But
So
yeah, it's different with different instruments. But yeah, I'd
my
say there's
parents never sat in. Did yours?
no, they didn't.
Yeah, mine didn't sit in. Interesting.
Maybe when I was first starting, like when I was like 10.
Mine didn't ever.
Really?
Nope, not one time. Nope. I went to lessons and that was it. They dropped me off, or they would sit. Like they'd sit in the. I had a teacher. We went to their house, so they would sit in the living room while I was in the lesson room.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember something funny about my lessons. I grew up way out in the, you remember where I grew up, like
oh
way
yeah,
way far west,
Sticks,
right?
Stickville.
Six. Yeah. And so my lessons cost $14 an hour. They started at 12 an hour and then they went up to $14 an hour. And I remember when I
What?
joined Chicago Youth Symphony. Yeah, I'm not kidding. When I joined Chicago Youth Symphony and I found out like some of the other horn players what they were paying like some of the people closer to the city and how much more expensive it was.
Wait a second. I have a question. Who are you? I have to know who this teacher was that was charging $14 an hour. How was that?
I don't know why he charged so little. He was a good teacher.
I mean, he could have worked at Starbucks for that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was
I'm
like
just saying. I don't get it. Okay.
it was, it was like 1989.
Okay. Well, maybe that's it. Maybe it was the time. I don't know. How old are we? Can we be any older? I don't think so. I remember when I thought 40s was old, and now I'm 42, and I'm like 80 is old.
I know you said that yesterday. You said that on the chat, yeah, on the hot seat
But
yesterday.
I don't remember saying that, but it's so true. That's really how I feel. It's
Yeah, I know.
seriously how I feel.
I used to think 40 was so old because my mom was 40. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
40.
I know. When I was 12, my mom was 42. My age. Holy crap. My mom had a 12-year-old. I'm imagining myself 42 having a 12-year-old. Wow. For real.
Imagine if you had a 12-year-old you.
Well, yeah. I don't know how that would go. I don't know. That's interesting. So let's, I don't know, where do I want to go with this? So money.
Yeah.
You have to deal with money and you have to talk about money. So here's the thing about money. You have to talk about it. You have to deal with it. You have to confront it. You have to stop pretending like it's not there. You have to stop pretending like it's some circumstance that will work itself out, because I assure you it will not. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. If it's going to get worked out, it's because you're going to work it out.
So how can musicians get more real about it? What's a tangible way that they can get real about it?
So the first thing is, if you want to, let's say you want to get a orchestra job, which, we're not, neither one of us is against anyone getting an orchestra job. I'm completely fine with it. Or it could be in a military band. I don't really care. It could be, you could be a music educator. Maybe you want to be a band director, or a choir director, something like that. The first thing is to get in the world of what actually those jobs pay. You actually need to understand what those jobs pay. Because right now, how you think of it, if you're younger, how you think of it is, once I get a job, I'll be fine and I'll have a salary and I'll be fine. And I assure you that when let's say you become an educator, and let's say you're making around $40,000 a year, which is kind of typical for an educator. I promise you that if you decide to get married and have a family, $40,000 a year doesn't go as far as it does when you're single.
Right.
That's the first thing, is you're not in the world really yet of how much things cost and what it's going to take to, get an apartment and buy furniture and all the things, pay electricity, pay for water, pay for cable or Netflix or whatever. You're not in the world of that right now. Pay car insurance, which is always increasing.
Yeah.
There are expenses associated with life, and you're not related to the reality of that. I suggest, first of all, getting in the reality of what things cost. Starting with, basic expenses, but also what your salary would be if you took a job. I assure you haven't really thought about that.
Right. And I posted that about when I joined the Virginia Symphony. I didn't do any math.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't believe that story when you told me that.
Yeah.
I thought, what kind of crack is she smoking? Or was she smoking? I don't understand how she never...
The crack I was smoking was, I won a job. Now I'm anointed.
Now I'm importanter.
Yeah.
Because I have a job. Yeah.
Right. So I did no math about, first of all, if I could even afford to move. I did no math about how much I would make at that job versus how much I currently made as a freelancer in Chicago.
Oh, yeah. And that's another thing. An intrastate move, intra, meaning between states. So moving from Illinois to Virginia, that's, first of all, a long distance. I moved from Denver to Phoenix last year, and that was only 2 states away. Not a big deal. But I moved at one time from Florida all the way to Colorado. That was a long move, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And so you had to like pick up all your crap and put it into a U-Haul or whatever and then drive across country.
Yeah.
That is expensive, let me tell you. And then when you get an apartment, you got to pay a security deposit. You got to pay, electric and all the other things that go along. You probably didn't add any of that up, I'll bet.
No, and I couldn't afford to rent an apartment right away. I lived with somebody who was kind enough to let me stay with him for like a month.
And also, you went there with a shit ton of debt, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Because I was living on credit.
Yeah, like double digits debt, right?
Yeah. I mean, I had my student loan, which was a lot. It was over 50,000.
Over 50. Okay. That's normal. That's normal.
Yeah, it was over 50,000. I want to say it was like 52,000, something like that.
And how much credit card debt did you have at that point?
I think it was around $3,000.
That's it?
Yeah, because I'll tell you why. The $50,000.
You were living off credit and you only had $3,000 on credit? What? Huh?
No, I was that 50,000 included living expenses. So I was taking out money to pay rent
card. Okay.
From the student loan.
Okay. What was your rent, by the way? What was your rent in Chicago at that time?
It was $675 for a studio.
Okay.
But then in Virginia, the rent was $650, so it wasn't cheaper.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It was a bigger place, but it wasn't cheaper. Yeah, and so I remember that I think the salary in Virginia at the time, I don't know how much it's gone up. I think it was around 25, something like that. But then, yeah.
Let's do the math on that. Ooh.
Then after taxes, right, you take out taxes. I remember distinctly that my every 2 weeks paycheck was about 8
minus 37
or 825
divided by 12. Yep, that's about right. So it was about what, 800?
Something like that. Yeah, but like if your rent is $650, you can figure out how much is left after that.
Wait a second. So your monthly income was 800 a month? I mean net, right?
No,
after
every
tax?
2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Okay. So 1,600. So you were getting 1,600 a month net.
Yeah.
Okay. So by the way, when I say gross, when I say net, just in case you guys don't, again, you guys don't really deal with money. So let's just talk about it. Gross means that, for those of you, for the uninitiated, gross means that taxes haven't been taken out. Net means that taxes have been taken out. So she was earning 1,600 net, meaning taxes were taken out. That's how much money, that's how much cash she had.
Yeah. And so I had a credit card go to collections right before I left, and I made an agreement with the people that were hounding me for many months to pay like $350 a month until it was paid off. So one part of the month.
Oh, you got a raw deal. I could so help you with that.
Yeah. Well, I know now. What I know now is that I didn't have to, be harassed by those people.
Well, you didn't have to be harassed, but you also could have gotten a better payment plan.
Right.
Just saying. I've been in plenty of financial trouble. So, okay. No, I'm just saying. Well, I mean, I have. I've been, it's,
And you know what? When I said I was 3,000 in debt, that was that one card. I think I had some other cards that I was paying on too. I was
going to say 3,000 is just too low. That's just not a lot of credit card debt. That's nothing, honestly.
That was that one card. And, I was making some income while I was in Chicago, so I was keeping up with some stuff.
Yeah, you were keeping up with minimum payments probably.
Yeah, and I had store credit cards, which is the worst thing to
do. The worst.
Yeah, dude. Marshall Fields, Carson's, J. Crew.
Yep. And they charge the earth. The interest rate on those cards is the earth, man. It's like 30%.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's insane. So, okay, that's interesting. So So you went and you realized obviously after a short time there that you couldn't really afford your
Right.
life, really.
Right.
Right?
Right. Not only I ended up getting some students, but it wasn't a wealthy area, Norfolk, Virginia, not a wealthy area. So I didn't have the easiest time drumming up students. And I think I want to say I had 3 or 4 students, and I drove to their houses.
Oh, that
Was
happens a
not,
lot. Yeah, a lot of people do that.
yeah. So I drove to their houses, and was not great. Was not great to do that.
How much did you get paid for a lesson, by the way?
I don't know, $20 or $25 for a half
Okay.
hour.
Okay, and then you had to get taxes taken out of that too. Can you claim it?
Probably.
Ha, probably.
Yeah.
So you didn't claim
Yeah,
it?
I filed those taxes, Eileen.
Really, Eileen, I swear to God, I paid all my taxes. That's so funny.
I didn't
Okay.
cash those checks and go to McDonald's. No.
No, what are you talking about? Back when you used to eat like crap?
Well, yeah, I did actually. I did eat like crap there. I would go to the grocery store and get like bread and cheese and a bottle of Shiraz and pasta.
Oh,
So
wow.
I ate like grilled cheese sandwiches and pasta, but I always, had my red wine.
Yeah, that's what's important, right? Just the
Yeah.
red wine.
Because I couldn't afford to go out. I only could afford to go out to a bar once a pay period.
Oh,
So
sure, I get that because it's expensive to buy
Yeah.
alcohol out.
Right. So every
True.
payday, I would go out with some friends. And then
Okay.
in between the times they would call me and ask me to go out, and I'd be like, dude, no,
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, because you didn't have any money. That's interesting. So and then I know you ended up leaving Virginia. How long were you there? A year?
A year, yeah.
A year. Okay. And and really seriously, is the reason why you left because, I mean, I realized they were having financial problems because you mentioned that, but was it also because you weren't, I mean, like, is it because you hated it in Virginia and you would be making the same amount of money in Chicago?
That was the main reason.
Mm-hmm.
I had a boyfriend in Chicago too, and my whole family was there.
Mm-hmm.
But, I moved home and then broke up with him like very soon
Right.
after.
Right.
So, but like it was definitely like I was more at home in Chicago, and I felt like, wow, I make the same money plus my family's there, and
Mm-hmm.
I love Chicago and everything. So,
Well, and that's what I think, if you're going to, you have to get related to what jobs pay. You have to get related to as well, what's the cost of living going to be where you end up moving? If you end up getting a job, what's the cost of living going to be? You may, by the way, you can Google all this. None of this information was available when we were coming up because Google didn't exist, but, it's available to you now. You should look up, if you're considering taking a job, auditioning for a job, look up cost of living in the city where it is.
mhm.
Find out what the position pays. You have to factor in, do I want to have a family eventually? Do I want to live there? Do I want to, what are my expectations? You have
Yeah.
to, you have to think about, these are the things nobody thinks about. Everybody just thinks about getting a job. I hate to say it, but that's very short-sighted. It's just short-sighted.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if you had your heart set on getting a job in one of these cities, you could then figure out other income streams that you could create either because of that city, in that city, or just as a self-employed person.
Well, and I think the other problem is, let's just say it out loud. I think the other problem is that musicians have this assumption that the only, alternative income stream they can take is teaching students. And that is, again, very short-sighted. There's
Yeah.
so many other things you can do, which is why, you absolutely have to listen to the hot seat episode, because we talked to 2 people who have other options. And, most of the time you don't see the options you have. You don't consider what else you could do outside of music. And maybe it's in music. I don't know. It really depends on the person. But you have options that you haven't thought about.
Yeah, to me, this is what my reality looked like when I thought about that. It was either I can play and only play, I can play and teach some lessons. That would be, those two scenarios were ideal. Or the dreaded third scenario, which was I would have to wait tables.
Okay.
Like that was how I viewed my reality. Like that the only choice for me was either I would have to suck it up and wait tables, because that's what I did when I was making ends meet in Chicago. I was working in bars and
Restaurants, yeah.
waitress and restaurants. Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's just go back to that time. What other, and maybe you're going to say none, what other skills did you have at that time? What else did you know how to do
I
besides
did,
play horn?
besides play horn.
Yeah.
I could type really fast.
Okay.
Um,
Did
and
you
sometimes
did you know about any topics? Did you have any knowledge about other topics?
other topics. No, not really. I mean, no.
Okay, so this is a really good point. It's really incredibly stupid not to develop other skills and develop your knowledge. You're an idiot if you're not doing that. If all you're doing all day long, no offense to you, Tracy, but if all you're doing all day long is playing music and listening to music and reading music and everything is about music and la 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 music, 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 you will never develop another income stream outside of music. And you can say to me all day long, Eileen, I don't want to develop another income stream outside of music. Well, you don't right now, but let me tell you, it's going to hurt you in the long run. You had no options because you didn't know anything else.
It's true, but I will say that I have heard some funny stories about people telling, waitress stories in blogs, and I could have done something. I mean, I had some pretty funny stories.
Possibly, but then where does the income come from that, though?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the question, is telling funny stories. Okay, so maybe you could become a stand-up comic telling funny stories about waitressing.
Yeah.
And then you get an income there. Well, and that's a major long game there.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true. Yeah, so no, I didn't. It wasn't like I was a sommelier and I knew everything about wine or something like that. Like I wasn't working fine dining or
Right.
anything like that. But
Mm-hmm.
some people are really passionate about food and wine and stuff, and they take time outside of their music study and career and practice to learn other stuff. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I really do.
Yeah. I mean,
Other interests.
you really had no, I mean, your only choice was to get some kind of music job because you had no other skills and no other knowledge.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I remember I stopped playing when I was 27, I think, 27, 28, somewhere around there. And I remember thinking at that time, holy crap, I don't know a whole lot of other stuff outside of this. I better get my ass some education outside of music. I mean, I remember thinking when I quit music, the first thing I did was go get educated.
Yeah.
I went to a temp agency and they would certify you in all these different, Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Office. This is back when that's all there was. And I remember I spent 2 weeks diving into these training programs just to get skilled up enough that I could get work doing something else. And that was really the start of my, getting involved in business. I mean, that was just the starting point, was getting all those skills. And then, it sort of evolved from there. But it starts with skill. It starts with knowledge. And if you don't know anything else, and even worse, let me tell you, it's not even if you don't know anything else. It's if you're not interested in anything else.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem. That's actually a problem.
I agree. And I think now there's not really any excuse because of the internet. I mean, I discovered a lot of interests that I had in my adult life after I was working here at North Carolina Symphony because of the internet, because I had a computer and I could Google stuff and read and learn. And, I think people more often than, back when I was coming and finishing up master's degree, there's more opportunity to figure out what you really like and to pursue other things,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And, one of the things that, the audience will get a sense of what this means more when you listen to the hot seats. You guys will understand this more when you hear, let's say, the first hot seat, which is coming out this week.
Coming out tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah, tomorrow, Friday. But this episode won't come out till Sunday, so.
Okay, right. Okay, so they're going to hear the hot seat before they hear this. Okay, that's cool. Whatever. So the thing I'll say is that, there are people every day people are spending money every single day. And my attitude has always been, why can't they spend it with me? If they're going to spend it somewhere, why can't they spend it with me? So all I have to do is create something they want and they'll spend it with me. I've always just thought that way, that, as long as they're handing money out freely, why not my direction?
Yeah.
And I know that that's kind of, foreign for a lot of people, but that's really how I've thought about it. So I'll share something on this call. And Tracy, I think I've shared this with you before. This whole idea of there are 5 main areas that people spend money. Should I talk about this?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So there are 5 main areas people spend money. I call it the big 5. It's just what I call it. And by the way, it's in no particular order, but there's 5 areas of life. And by the way, you spend money in all these 5 areas. They are money, love, career, health, and time. Like I said, in no particular order. That's just the order I'm naming them. Money, love, career, health, and time. So this is where people spend all their money. So I'll just say a little more about it. So people will part with their money if they perceive that you, your product, or your service will help them make more money or save money.
Mm-hmm.
Love. So people will part with their money if they perceive that you, your product, or your service will help them find love, find a life partner, find a spouse, get married, have children. And in the love realm is also get a divorce or get a divorce peacefully. They will also give you money for that. So that's all in the love category. Or dating, by the way. Dating. Of course, dating. Right, dating.
Yeah.
Which of course I say find a partner, find a spouse. That's really what I mean is dating. So, okay, so that's love. Career, money, love, career. So career. People will spend money with you if they perceive that you, your product, or your service will help them change jobs, get a better job, get a higher job that pays more money, start a business, start a different career. People will spend money with you if they perceive that you, your product, or your service will help them do that. Money, love, career, health. So let's talk about health. This is not going to be a surprise to anybody. People will part with their money if they perceive that you, your product, or your service will help them lose weight, lose fat, get stronger, look better, age more gracefully, look younger, anything in that realm. That's all health.
Mm-hmm.
And then time would be people will part with their money if they perceive you, your product, or your service will help them have more time freedom, have more time off, go on vacation, find great vacation spots, vacation longer or more or better. Like people buy adventure vacations and things like that. It's all part of the time conversation. Or saving time, like productivity. Like you'll notice there's a lot of products out there about productivity. That's also a time conversation. So if you look, the majority of your money, if not all of your money, is spent in those 5 areas. Now, there's 2 other areas I didn't mention, but they're minor areas. They're smaller areas. And it depends on the person. So one area is hobbies, and the other area is consumerism. So hobbies would be like, you like to go fly fishing. You like to go water skiing. You like to go boating. You have a sailboat and you sail it around. Water skiing, golf. Those are hobbies. Fish tanks. A lot of people have these beautiful freshwater or saltwater fish tanks. That's a hobby. Another, and then consumerism is, you're driving by Starbucks and you're like, hey, let's stop for a coffee. That's consumerism. Or you're driving by a yogurt shop and you're like, ooh, let's stop and get a yogurt or an ice cream or whatever that is. That instant, I want to buy response, that's consumerism.
Okay.
So
what about entertainment? Is that in the category?
Yeah, entertainment might go under hobbies. Because a lot of people's hobbies are entertaining.
Right.
So, I mean, for most people, right? So, I mean, I suppose it could be a separate category. I think it depends, but I kind of think of entertainment as hobbies because hobbies are typically entertaining.
Right.
Right. So those are the areas that people spend money in. And you'll notice that, so let's talk about classical music. Where does classical music fall? Going to concerts.
Going to concerts would be hobbies, entertainment.
Yeah. Hobbies, entertainment. That's right. And by the way, some people spend more money in one category than others. There's people who invest thousands of dollars in business coaches or business mentors or whatever you want to call them, that their primary goal is to generate more income. But listen, money is not the world for everybody. For some people, it's the most important thing. For other people, it's not at all. It depends on the person. So, and that's fine. For some people, I mean, I've met women who their entire goal is to get married and have a family. And that's what they're focused on. Literally, they are on Tinder and they are on Match.com and they are on eHarmony and they are going on 4, 5, 6 dates a week because they're looking for the guy they're going to get married to and have a kid or kids, right? You can see, like, it's different for every person. There are some people who have dedicated their lives, they have a career right now, and they've dedicated their lives to climbing the corporate ladder or climbing the ladder in their company. Clearly, career is the most important thing to them.
Right.
So it's when I say the big five, I'm not, we all value one category or two categories above the rest. We all do.
Right. That makes sense.
That's where you spend all your money. And by the way, you can figure out what matters to you if you look at your bank statement. So pull out your bank statement for the last 6 months to a year, which hopefully you guys have them and you look at them. But anyway, that's another topic for another day. Right. So take out your bank statement and just look at the line items. I mean, especially if you use a debit card or even your credit card statement, that would work too. Depends on where you spend your money. Some people use credit cards, some people use and pay it off, and some people use or don't pay it off. And some people use debit cards. I tend to use debit cards for a lot of things. And so I can look at my bank statement and I can see where my priorities are.
Right. And have you ever heard of that website called Mint?
Oh, yeah.
You can plug in all your stuff and then it does like a pie graph for you. You can see.
That's right. You can do that. Yeah. But I mean, if you just look at your bank statement, you will see right now what you value. And what you value is what you pay for, period. If you're not paying for it, you don't value it, period. Just understand that. If you don't value it, you're not paying for it. So if you're saying that you value going to the, health and fitness, and your money is not going towards health and fitness, you actually don't value health and fitness.
Right.
You don't. Now, people could say, well, that's not true because I have a gym membership. Let me tell you what valuing fitness looks like. If somebody really values health and fitness, their grocery bill is high and they're shopping at farmers markets or Whole Foods or whatever. Their grocery bill is higher than the average person's, for real. It is. Yeah. Because they're all about, organic food or healthy food or whatever, and healthy food costs a little bit more. So their grocery bill is probably one of the biggest bills of the month. Another thing, people who value health and fitness, let's say they're doing a lot of strength training, a lot of endurance, whatever. They're going to the massage therapist, they're going to the chiropractor, they're maybe paying for training, personal training, or some kind of private lesson-ish type thing, or classes. I mean, if they truly value health, do you see what I'm saying about look at your bank statement? Because don't tell me that you have a gym membership and you value health and fitness. That's bullshit. That's not true. If you have nothing else on that bank statement, you actually don't value health and fitness. You just don't. You don't. And you need to begin. This is very important where money is related. You're not related to what you value. You're not necessarily related to how much money you're spending. And, because what you might be telling people, I value this, may not match where your money is going. And if your money isn't going there, you don't value it, period.
So are you saying that when you start to notice what you value, that can be a clue as to what you could create for an income stream for yourself because it's something that you truly value?
Yes, definitely. I wasn't going there, but yes, I'm going to say yes to that. I'll give you an example. So I know that you personally value health a lot.
Yes.
I know that you buy a lot of health, homeopathy, health, supplements, healthy food. I know about, I mean, I know. And if you looked at your bank statement, you'd be able to categorize how much of your money is spent on health related or being healthy.
Yeah, I've done that pie graph thing, and it's an enormous amount of our income goes to, like you mentioned, chiropractor.
Yep.
All the supplements and healthy food. It's a lot, and I realized, like you asked me what I was interested in back then, if I had different interests, and the answer was nothing because I really didn't. But that was like actually before the internet. It was before I knew a whole bunch of stuff about taking care of yourself, and I started to care about it later in my life. And
I was going to ask you.
Really interested in it.
Well, I was going to ask you that. Why did you suddenly, because I know you used to eat like shit before. So what got you interested in, by the way, I used to eat like shit too. It's not an indictment. What shifted for you that made you decide to start caring about health?
Well, I grew up with asthma and allergies really bad. And when I went to Virginia, one of the things that was good about Virginia was that I had health insurance. So I could get my medications for a lot less money. And so, but then when I decided to go back to Chicago, I was looking at paying full price for all these things I was taking again. And at that point, I didn't know anything about how your diet affects things that happen. And I was having a lot of problems with cold sores on my lips. And that's no good for when you play the horn, like really hard.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sore. So I was freaked out about always getting them, which being freaked out contributes to cold sores. But anyway,
true.
And I took this prescription drug for it, and it was very expensive. It was like $10 for one pill. And it was covered by insurance. So Virginia, in that way, it covered some stuff that I was having to pay for full price. But then when I decided to leave, I was looking at having to pay for this stuff out of pocket. And I was a little worried about that. And I became good friends with one of the horn players in the Virginia Symphony named Rachel. And she was interested in more natural health stuff. Not to the point where we are now, but she had a book on her shelf, and it was about herbs. And I started looking at it, and it was saying stuff like you could take herbs for this and that. And I was like, what? Like it was completely foreign to me, the idea of you going somewhere other than a doctor for a problem that you had. Like I literally didn't know what it was or had never heard of it. And so when I got back to Chicago, I decided to Google herb. Like this is my first experience with Google for real. I Googled herbs and asthma and allergies in Chicago, and I found this acupuncturist who dealt with Chinese herbs. And I went to him, and that was like the beginning of it all, because I started going to him, and I saw such a drastic change in my own health from going to him regularly that I started to go, well, if that can happen from that, then what would happen if I started to eat healthier? And what would happen if it was gradual? Because I didn't want to give up that, Cheetos.
I get it. And that makes sense. So, and then of course that started your journey into health.
Yes.
And then you started to get smart about it, and you started to read more about it, and all of a sudden you changed your life.
Yeah. And over the course of I'd say 10 years of just getting obsessed with finding out new information, every day I was finding out something new and going, oh, guess we have to quit drinking out of BPA plastic bottles. Guess we have to do that.
Right.
You know, people around me are like, geez, give
Yeah,
up
I
the
mean, and
Google.
that's true. That's what it's like today. There's always some scientific advancement that, now we're not supposed to, fill in the blank every day.
Right, exactly.
You
And
know,
so that, like, if, you know, take me back to 1997, but give me this laptop and all that information,
that's a good
I
point.
might have had time to say, oh, you know what, instead of going to master's degree, I could still take lessons with Dale and I could go get my acupuncture certificate.
Right,
And then
which you can do online now.
online, really?
Yeah, you can. I'm sure that you have to go to some kind of clinical, but I'm just saying you can do a lot of
Right.
coursework online.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Totally. And
Yeah,
I could have because, acupuncturists charge, 100, more than $100 an hour sometimes. So,
yeah, they do very well actually. Yeah,
and on
completely.
top of it, you can treat yourself. Like I remember my acupuncturist told me that he had a toothache, but he had a medical exam. He was also a cardiologist. He was a acupuncturist and a cardiologist. And he
Oh,
told me that he put some needles in his ear before he had a toothache. It was really bad, but he needed to take a test. So he just put these like he put them in the numbing points or something. Was able to numb his tooth so he could go to the test. And then he went to the dentist
wow,
after that.
that's wild. That's great.
Yeah. So
That's a good
like,
story.
yeah. So I think if I knew what I know, if I knew then what I know now, I
Hmm.
think I really would have been smarter about this stuff. And I think there was part of me that thought, I mean, actually maybe not, but I could have felt like, oh, I would be less of a musician if I created this other thing. Like if I was an acupuncturist and a musician, does that make me less of a musician or not? I,
Oh, yeah, I know.
you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there's that, but I don't, from what I know now, from the place I am right now, I would think, hell no, it makes me a kick-ass musician who can do acupuncture on people.
Well, and I
You
mean,
know?
I think the big thing is, and I felt this way too when I was a musician. We get all sort of righteous about, well, I'm a musician. Like it's some, we take on this identity, and well,
Totally.
if I'm doing anything besides playing, I'm not a musician. That's such nonsense. I don't know
Yep.
why any of us ever thought that. I thought that too at one time. I remember when I decided to stop playing, I really didn't know who I was for about 2 years. I was really kind of lost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I worked. Obviously, I made money. I got skilled. I skilled up in, you know, um, administrative type work initially. But I remember being really just very lost and trying to find like, oh, who am I now? If I'm not this, who am I now? And
Right.
I think that whole idea needs to die already.
Yeah.
It just needs to die already. You're not less of a human just because you're not less of a person just because you're doing something besides music. In fact, you would be wise to do something besides music. There's something about being multifaceted. There's something about being, I don't know, interesting to talk to even. Try that on for size.
Yeah. I don't know. We make this stuff up, and there's this, maybe the identity part is rooted in the fact that we start doing this thing so early,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we're doing it through these really formative years.
yeah.
And like you're doing it through junior high, that's pretty much the worst time to be alive in my opinion. And I
It
mean,
totally
really.
is. Oh yeah.
And
I
then
mean, not only are you ugly and your clothes don't fit right and your mom cuts your hair wrong, but now you're in band. Now you're a band fag. That's what they used to call us. Band fags. Do you remember? Like, how like, it's so funny because I remember being a gawky, ugly, we should post, I have pictures of myself from junior high when I had
oh God,
horrible haircuts.
let's post
We
those because
definitely, we definitely have to do a TBT on the Crushing Classical page and show ugly ass pictures of,
we're doing that because I had glasses that took up my entire face.
yep, yep,
So,
yep,
yeah.
totally.
But like, and then what happens is so first you're a total, outcast. I went to a high school where cheerleaders and football players were the coolest people. And I was going down the hall, like they put the band room on the opposite side of the school, like where nobody went. you know.
That's where the burnouts went to smoke weed.
Literally, the band room was next to the detention room where people would get sent if they were in trouble and they were in detention. So there
Oh
was the
boy.
detention. It was like jail band chorus. So,
Oh,
so
that's
yeah.
awesome.
And then I got into Chicago Youth Symphony. Well, I remember the first time that I did anything outside of school was when I went to Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp, and I met all these people who loved music as much as I did, and they were actually cool people, and we were making great music together, and I was like, I found people that are like
Hmm.
me, and it's not weird. And then I got into Chicago Youth, and I met you and your brother and
Hmm.
all of your friends and other people, and it was like once a week on Saturdays, I got
Hmm.
to go to the city, which is where I felt like I belonged,
Right.
and be with people who understood what I loved, and
Hmm.
and that really forms your identity. So
It
then
does.
when you leave, it's like if you don't carry that on, who are you? And
Right.
it's getting your identity from your external environment, really,
Hmm.
isn't it?
Oh, totally. It totally is. And it's like I get it, but at some point when you get to be, you have to start letting that go when especially when you're getting into your early 20s. You really have to start letting that go.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not actually, it's who you are. It's not who you are. It's what you do.
It's
And
what you
yeah. And by the way, there's a lot of people who've convinced themselves like, no, Eileen, this is who I am and this is what I will do. And listen, there's nothing wrong with conviction. There's nothing wrong with being, you know, I'm going to have a solo career. I'm going to, there's nothing wrong with conviction. I think conviction's great. I understand it. I have it too.
Yeah.
Um, but make sure that you're not also being delusional. Um, you know how I got to say this. So, American Idol. I don't know if anybody is that even on anymore.
I don't know, but I watched it religiously for about 4 seasons.
Okay, so did I, and I only watched it when Simon Cowell was on because he was hilarious. But
Right.
yeah, I loved it when he cut the musicians, but when he cut the
Yeah.
singers. But the best thing the thing that was so interesting about that show that I want to bring in here is that um, the number of people that walked into that audition room. You know how they go to all the cities. They go
Yeah.
to they do the tour or whatever,
Yeah.
and they hear they film the first round of auditions that they do in every city, and I'm sure they do it for entertainment purposes because honestly, I'm sure half or more of the people come in there. They think they're really great singers or whatever, and they're awful. They have no pitch. They can't carry a tune, and they seriously think they're Carrie Underwood, and they're not. I mean, they're terrible.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say is it's great to have conviction, but don't be delusional. I mean, you may not be a soloist. You actually may not be.
Right.
You know, and I think the more realistic you are about that, the better life is going to go for you. You really do have to find reality in how good you are and what you can do with it. And by the way, you can create a music career and not be that good at it. I mean, hell, people argue all the time that Kenny G is not that great of a player.
Right, but who's laughing all the way to the bank with that one?
Yeah, he's doing. Let me just let's Google that. Let's see what his net
Oh,
worth
he's worth
is.
so much money, dude.
Hold on. Kenny G net worth. Let's see where he is.
Is it like
50 million.
$50 million? Yeah. So,
50
yeah,
million.
he's the worst saxophonist in the world, and who cares?
Right, like he really cares. Yeah, totally. So
Exactly. You're right. And he invented smooth jazz. So who cares?
actually, he kind of did.
Yeah.
He kind of did, Um, yeah, I don't know. This is the thing, we talk about look, I don't really care where your money comes from, but you've got to get related to it. You've got to release your identity where money is concerned, where you're going to get your money from. You have to do that. You're not a second class citizen if you're not making money from music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And you have to start looking at, what do you value? What do you value? You have to look. And the only place you know what you value is on your bank statement or your credit card statements. What you spend money on is what you value.
Totally.
It's what you
Well,
value.
you know what? I've been thinking about this thing because this was another conversation that we've had, and we might need to put it on the next fireside chat. But we had talked about viability, and along these lines, there was another set of category of what is viable, and it was several things that you had talked about with me before when thinking about creating an income stream and what those, so you said that people spend their money on, the list of things that you said, the
money,
career,
love, career, health, and time.
yes. But then there was another subset of things that were viable, like education, entertainment. You remember those?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, there is. I mean, people, one thing that people spend a lot of money on is their kids.
Yeah.
So, and of course, you and I are great examples of that. I mean, our parents invested a pretty good amount of money in our music education, and probably most everybody who's listening to this, that's the case. You don't become a musician by accident in most cases. You become a musician because your parents invested money in you becoming a musician.
Yeah.
My parents definitely did. So that's one thing. People will always spend money on education. And by the way, education does not have to look like giving lessons. There's a lot of other ways. And actually, I probably shouldn't ask you this on a live call, but have you talked at all about the workshop that you guys did?
No, not really. No, I haven't.
Okay, so I guess the question is, do you want to save that for the next time we chat, or do you want to talk about it here?
Yeah, let's save it for next time because we're getting close to an hour, but that would be a good thing to talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Very good thing to talk about.
Good. So I'm going to make a note that that's what we're going to talk about on the next chat. We'll talk about viability, and we'll talk about your workshop.
Viable income streams. Yes.
Viable income streams and how that relates to this workshop that you guys did there in Raleigh.
Yes. That's a great idea. Great.
All right, good. And we welcome your comments, by the way. It's even more fun if you strongly disagree. So for real, it's just, I enjoy a good debate. I enjoy a good, I'm speaking from my own experience and, everything that I've, had I think the good fortune of learning over and the many mistakes I've made, the things I've done right, but namely the things I've done wrong. I've actually done a lot of things that, failed, that didn't work. And I've learned more from that than I have from my wins, way more.
That's awesome. That's really interesting. Well, maybe we can create like a thread on the Facebook page specific to this conversation that people could write in about or something.
Yeah, and we're still trying to figure out, we're still trying to sort through what these chats are going to be and how they're going to, we don't really know. And this is one of those things where you just go with it and you figure out along the way what it's going to be. And that's what we're doing now is we're getting, and these are talks that we have on our own. We did it for almost a year before anybody.
Just talking. Mm-hmm. And every time going, this would be great.
Yeah. Why aren't we recording this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So many calls that have come and gone.
Oh, totally.
So many calls. So we're hoping to capture some of the things that we talk about on these calls, and hopefully it'll get a little heated. That's always the fun part. When it gets a little heated.
Heated, like you and I disagreeing about something?
Yeah, absolutely. It's more fun. Because we don't necessarily agree on everything. I mean, you come from a different, even though we both grew up musicians, I went one way and you went another way.
Yeah. One time we should talk about how the first time that we started talking about me doing this, I actually didn't understand.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to write that down for the next, because that would work out well for the next chat to fit in with viability in the workshop.
I literally.
Yep.
I didn't understand.
I remember how lost you were when not, I don't mean that as an insult, by the way. I just mean, I remember how, I mean, you truly had a reaction like, what are you talking about? You really, you were, I mean, it was amazing how rudimentary I had to make my explanation at that time
Yeah,
of
and I'm
what
not
you
that
could
dumb.
do.
Like, I'm not that dumb.
No, 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 no. You're not dumb at all. You're not dumb at all. But it really showed me the exposure you didn't have.
Exactly. And like when we first started talking about this, and way back it wasn't like what it is now because
No,
it's
it's
evolved.
different. Yeah, it's definitely, yeah.
But I thought you were saying that I would not be able to play the horn anymore.
Yeah,
Like,
I remember that. I totally remember. And you were having little freakouts.
yeah, and you never even said those words, but like
No, never
somehow
said
I
them.
made it mean that. Like,
Yeah. And
yeah.
actually, you made it mean that for, let's see, probably like a good 6 to 8 months, maybe. Yeah.
Mm, maybe for I don't know about that long, but there
You
was
don't think
definitely
that long? You think less?
yeah.
Well, because remember how you kept coming back and saying, but Eileen, I don't want to quit the horn. Like every once in a while, that would spring back into the conversation. And I was like, wait a second, where'd you get that from? Like every once in a while, that would come out of the blue. But Eileen, I just know that I don't want to quit the horn. That's always where you would land. And I would think, where did she get that from? Where is she getting that from? Like, what did I say that she's getting that?
Yeah. I don't know. It's not like you ever even said it.
I don't remember ever saying it because it was never I never thought that either. I never thought, oh, Tracy's going to quit the horn. That never once even crossed my mind.
I know.
Never once. Not one
I
time.
know. It's like there's this deeply rooted belief system
Yep.
that not even talked about or even like you didn't even know it was there. I didn't know
Yep.
it was
Yep. And I
so.
mean, that's why I say it was still there for like 6 or 8 months because it just kept springing up every once in a while. But I really would have to, I mean, I don't even think I could look back to see when you stopped saying that because I haven't heard you say it for a while now.
Right.
But like you're not bringing it up anymore. It doesn't seem to be a concern for you because I haven't heard it from you in a while.
Exactly. Like I finally got it into my head what an evolving career means and looks like for me.
Yeah.
And obviously it's going to be different for everybody.
But yeah, we should definitely talk about that because you are this audience. In other words, they are going to have the same conversations or are probably having the same conversations right now that you were having in your head when I introduced this concept to you.
Totally.
Right? And it
Totally.
took you a really long time to get acclimated to, I don't have to quit my instrument or whatever. I don't have to stop being a musician.
Yeah, I can still play. I can still play gigs that I like to play.
Yeah.
I can yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I can still go sub with the CSO if I want to go sub with the CSO.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Although now I've sort of, let's be honest, I've made you look at the financial side of that, and now you're like, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Well, you have because let's be clear, like I don't live in Chicago anymore.
Yep,
So, and they
yep,
don't pay your flight, which they shouldn't. So, they invited me back and I went and uh I know that I didn't spend all the money that I made getting there and and I have a daughter and a husband and
mhm,
I could in the future could go there without them, but at the
mhm.
time, we weren't used to being apart, so she would come up half the week later or whatever and
Right.
you know
I remember that.
and I have family there, so it was nice to be able to go and see family and for them to come too and see them.
Sure.
But at the same time, yeah, it's a lot of organizing my life. It's a lot of buying plane tickets and figuring out where to stay and renting
Yeah.
cars.
Renting a
So
car or whatever. Yeah, and that's the thing is again where money comes in. That's the same thing if you're driving to a gig and how much money you're making versus what are you spending on gas? What do what is the real cost of what's the opportunity cost of the thing that you're saying yes to?
right, and they knew too. They're like, I know you have a lot to work out. They would be like, I remember one of the times I was there, they asked me if I could come the next week, and then they're like, but I know you have like a lot to work out. You can't just say yes right away because I don't
Right.
live there. So yeah, it is it's tremendously fun. and cool to do it. But yeah, there's a lot involved with it. So
Yeah, totally. So, okay. So I wrote it down what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about viability next time. We'll talk about the workshop. I'm not saying the name of it on purpose because we'll just save that for next time. And then we'll talk about how you started Crushing Classical and very much what this audience, because how you started Crushing Classical is very much how, sorry, I just swallowed spit. How, yeah, the human being is on the call now. How anybody here is going to begin creating or evolving their career. How you did that and what you went through to do that. It's going to be a very similar process for a lot of people. And I'm not saying you're going to start a Facebook page, by the way. I'm not saying, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what you're going to do because I haven't talked to you, but I say you, I'm speaking to whoever's listening.
Right.
But I'm not saying you're going to start another Crushing Classical. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that what the process that Tracy went through to get here today, nobody got to see that, actually. Nobody got to see all of the, I'll call it the mind fuck that Tracy went through to get, I mean, am I wrong? That's what it was.
A total mind fuck. Hashtag mind fuck.
Hashtag mind fuck. That's what it was.
Oh my God, totally. And I feel like I'm just now, like, when you're trying to swim and you're not doing very well, and then you finally get your nostrils just barely above so you can breathe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sounds stupid, but like the stuff that I went through in my head was really what it was, because it was just all in my head. And the idea that, I mean, I'll even talk about how it felt weird even to say that what I was starting to people.
Yeah, because I remember you saying, but Eileen, they know me as a horn player.
Yes.
So many times you said that to me. Eileen, they know me as a horn player. I'm like, yeah, I know, but you can be other things. What do you mean I can be other things? I'm a horn player.
What are people going to think when I start to post these things?
Exactly. What are people going to think? Yeah, no, listen, I could totally understand that. I totally understand that. It makes all kinds of sense. So we'll dive in. It's going to be really interesting to talk about your evolution, because, you started out horn-wise, went to Crushing Classical. We could talk about what happened there. Why did it go from one thing to another, and how did it go from one thing to another?
Yeah.
And you probably have the most vivid memory of how that transition happened. I think it was because of the podcast, actually.
All I can tell you is that when I finally changed my Facebook page to Crushing Classical, it felt like that was when I knew what I was doing even.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So it was like there was like a good 6 months of what am I doing?
Yeah. And actually, I think that's true of anyone who's starting something new, whatever it is. What am I doing? There's so much. What am I doing?
Yeah,
there's so much of that. And I mean, I've had that happen numerous times in my life, even in my business life, even in my self-employed life, 15 years. I've had so many moments of, okay, wait, what am I doing now? For sure. So
yeah. And as a musician, you just want it to be as easy as it was when you were growing up. Hey, give me a place to play. And then I don't have to, then I can be in my comfort zone. Because
give me music to play, and give me a place that I need to play it, and give me a date that I need to do it, and I'll go at it.
Because that's what you've been doing for 15 years or whatever as a student.
Yeah. You're told what to play, you're told where to be, you're told what to do, and it's very comfortable. All you have to do is go in the room and learn it, and then go in there and play it. That's it.
Yep. That's it.
This is very different.
Yeah.
Very different. So, okay, good. So I look forward to talking about that next week.
Yes. Fireside Chat number 3 coming right up.
Yeehaw.
All right. Thank you, Eileen. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please write a review on iTunes and come and join the conversation at facebook.com/Crushing Classical and Instagram at Crushing Classical. I'm also on Twitter at Crush Classical. I've been tweeting about when I post, so.
And so Twitter is Crush Classical?
Yeah, I couldn't fit all of it.
You couldn't fit all of it. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at, and we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.